women will be screaming at that.
Well, do you not say anything? Or does that make you a coward?
Because there's probably a lot of people who are in this commentary community who are turning on you, right?
This is going to go on for like years. You know, there's no such thing as forgiveness on the internet. Cancel culture is final. I was convinced. That's the thing. One day you are going to upload your last video that bangs. That is a terrifying amount of pressure to put on yourself. I hated what I had built.
Do you think you were aware of that at the time?
No way. I will never compare myself with anybody else. I refuse to do it.
I love your indifference to being bisexual.
Oh, I just do not care.
I just love it. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Process. This time with ImAllexx.
Hello, how you doing?
How are you, bro?
I'm good. It's always weird having that username because obviously you're not Alex.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah,
I
said it.
I didn't think that through when I made it.
Yeah, that's good.
When people introduce me as that, it's always like, you're not Alex.
Well, it's funny you say that because I do actually like. I've had those moments. I go, that is good. No, well done.
It's good when I say it.
Yeah.
When I say it, it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
like, because that is him. But then when other people say it, it's like it kind of loses its
Yeah,
whole
that's true.
purpose.
Yeah, sorry about that. So Alex on the process. The point of the process, I say it pretty much every time, but it's not about this whole life body of work. It's about kind of zoning in on moments along the way. And so I think some people have been a bit funny about certain people depending on their age sometimes. I think it's nonsense, and I think it's all relative. Like the whole point of this whole series is to kind of talk to people about, as I say, what they're feeling at different moments in time. And you've had a year, but you had a year before that as well. So there's sort of good bits and bad bits. So I kind of just want to find out a bit more about where you're at. Before I get into all of that, obviously the podcast is on iTunes and Spotify and all those different things. We've had lots of different guests have been really, really good. So if you want to check those out as well. And let's just get straight into surviving cancel culture.
Oh, I think it's one of the biggest problems nowadays, with just in terms of like YouTube or celebrity type culture in general. It's just like people accusing people of stuff, accusations flying around like 24/7. Like there are so many people I know have been accused of stuff rightfully, falsely accused of stuff. And basically what happened is we had like another one, because it's not the first time it's happened. It's the first time it's happened when anybody really knows who we are. But when we were all like smaller channels, it used to stuff like that used to fly around so many times.
Accusations.
They're just accusations, truths, and when you got like a bunch of 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-olds dealing with stuff like that. A lot of us, one of our friends was accused of basically like something very terrible, and we all believed it, and then it basically ended up turning out to being like completely false.
Right.
And then it's that whole thing where, number one, you don't know who's telling the truth anymore, who's lying to you, and then suddenly the difference is now is that it's not like something you just go through with your friends, because everybody is a public figure. And we've all known each other since before any of us really had like any form of following, but because we've all grown with it, it then becomes a thing where you've also got like 50,000 people or so making like their judgments on that, and it was just it's just a crazy time in general.
So the basics of this was a high profile person was accused. You then had a period of time where you had to try and figure out, so the accusation was rape, was it? Yeah, and so when it's something like that, it's such a sensitive issue that having watched the Jackmate podcast with you guys, you were sort of highlighting that it took a couple of months for you to try and figure out where to sort of sit with something like that, because it is such a sensitive issue and it is such a difficult thing to prove either way. What allowed you to, and maybe there is an answer to this, what allowed you to get to a point where you made the mistake, which you've said, of sort of putting your sort of flag in the ground in terms of which side to go with?
So many messages came out, first of all, and before it was like a public thing, because it obviously wasn't public for us, first of all. It was something where on the internet happened so quickly. Like the accusations happen, and that's where people think it started. But like stuff like that and all these situations that happen, there's so many all the time. Normally goes on for like 4 or 5 months before then. Like 5 months ago you hear, oh, so-and-so probably might have done this, and then like 2-3 months go by and then you see messages get sent to you and stuff like that, or like at a point you got like 20-30 people telling you that it's all true. And it's one of those things where I ended up basically saying something about it because of the fact that I'd invited him around my place and he'd been staying with me for a few weeks, and then basically a bunch of my friends actually called me up when he left, which was like the weirdest part. They waited for him to leave and they went, "You've been housing a rapist for X amount of weeks."
Right.
And basically like, well, like, why are you doing that? You know this is true. And I was like, I've never heard of this before.
Right.
And then it became this thing where then they sent me everything on it. And I thought I was like, oh, this is, he's terrible. I read everything and I was like, he is horrible. I am really actually quite upset with the fact that I've introduced him to all my friends. So then I felt like it was my responsibility to say, I don't agree with any of the stuff that he's done. A month down the line, it turns out that most of it was completely falsified by the girl he was with.
Right.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying. It is terrifying. And it's such a... Women will be screaming at that because of the damage that something like that does, because it gives the sway of sort of being falsely accused to it being those kind of things being true. Often it's down to perspective. Like I've had those discussions with different women about, you know, oh, well, you don't know. Well, you don't know. And it often comes from your point of view, as in you go, well, I would never do that. So there has to be some sort of nonsense involved.
Yeah, well, like when you get somebody...
But it's the same the other side.
When somebody sends you something like that, you think, why would his girlfriend lie? That's the first thing you think, especially because I had somebody assault me outside a pub, literally like 3 weeks after it all happened, which was almost like this weird irony. And I was like, well, I wouldn't lie about any stuff. I had my friends with me when that happened, and that was just an experience in itself. And then I also have friends
what
who...
Was that?
I was outside the pub after playing football with a few of my mates, and some fan recognised me, approached me. She was a woman, and she was with a bunch of guys, and she was like quite clearly like trying to chat me up, and I was like rejecting her advancement. So one of the guys came over, he grabbed me by the fucking balls, and he just went, "Oh, he's got a nice pair on him."
Are you fucking serious?
And I stood there, I just froze. I didn't know what to do, and then my mate Zach literally like grabbed the guy and was like, "What are you doing?" Like, let go.
Wow.
And so that was one of those things where when something like that happens, it's weird because when I read stuff on the internet as well, I always thought you believe women first, and that was like the way to go for it. And now it's weird because obviously I get all the stuff saying, I should never have done that to your mate, but it's like, oh, do you believe women first? Like, what do you pick? Like, how do you decide?
Yeah.
How do you know? And I think it's almost a situation where now I'm like, well, do you not say anything? Or does that make you a coward? Like, what? Well, you can't really win.
So I think that kind of... This is a really strange space that you have to live in because... And this from an output.
I mean, obviously, he's the victim out of all of it. He was the one who got lied about. Like, it's not...
Yeah, and he could say the exact same thing that you've just said there about why didn't you believe me? But I guess you didn't know him well enough, and life's full of mistakes.
Yeah, that's another thing with YouTube. I think a lot of people see it as, oh, they're best friends, but it's like that was like the first time I met him and all that. So when I read it, and it's happened so many times, and like 9 times out of 10, it normally turns out to be true. So I just believe it. It's also one of those things where you don't really think straight when something like that happens.
Yeah. Because
you'd rather not be in a situation where any of your friends being accused of that.
Of course. So when that then, it's understood that it's false, and then there's this, this phrase that I want to vomit when I say it, this cancel culture idea, and you're in the eye of that storm. What was going through your mind in those few days? Because there's probably a lot of people who are in this commentary community who are turning on you, right?
Yeah, so it's this interesting thing where, like, the internet going back and forward, as somebody who makes videos on people all the time as a job, like, that was actually probably the easiest thing. Like, losing, like, the 40,000 subscribers, all of that. I watched it happen to him, and then as soon as he proved it to be false, I was like, well, obviously that is just going to come back to the direction of the people who went with it in the first place, which is completely understandable, because that's what the internet does. And it's been a big thing this year now where cancel culture's been up, like 9 times out of 10 the people who got cancelled this year made a response video and it flipped, like, no matter what they said, to an extent where... So I was thinking...
Right, so there's a pendulum.
It's like, and then everybody goes, oh, well, we hate cancel culture. But then you're thinking, those are the same people who obviously cancelled him, and they went, "Oh no, sorry, no, it's you."
Yeah.
But it was for me, that wasn't the part that was the hardest. I expected that. I even knew going into it. It was when I knew that there was even going to be accusations posted. I was thinking it's going to be a nightmare, just in general, because even people I know who didn't say anything even got hit by the ricochets, I suppose, because they were like, "Oh, you didn't say anything at all.
Right.
So what were you doing?" But for me, it's when there's a lot of times where people you really feel like you know, and friends of yours, they either start avoiding you or quite clearly talking to you differently. That's the real stuff that I think when it affects your real life.
Yeah.
Stuff on the internet, obviously it's my job, so it does affect me to an extent. But I wasn't bothered about any of that because for me it wasn't about that in the first place. It wasn't about this person obviously their career should be ended. It's more like I don't want my friends hanging around with these people. And then it gets to the point where friends are like, who is telling the truth at all?
And well, that's it. I mean, talking to you there and understanding the life and the world that you're in, it feels like there's a lot of blurred lines where things can spill onto each other. Because there you spoke quite clearly about the distinction between the internet and real life, but then the whole storm, it was a bit of both.
Yeah, it was my family knew about it. They would message me about it. I basically just took 2 months off to just kind of reassess just everything. Just because I felt like, because it was one of those things where I was like, it got to the point where I was even like, do I enjoy the job enough to have to put up with stuff like this? Because this is the type of stuff that comes with a job nowadays. It's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I just had to have like a big reassessment. I think everybody involved pretty much did, just in general. And also looking at everybody being like, have we got ourselves in a situation where, you know, people would say stuff like this and then everybody would believe it or even get as far as it did in terms of the legs.
And in terms of the threshold, sort of that moment of, okay, I need to stop. I need to step away from this for 2 months. What was that? When was that moment? Because so in my head, and I'm sure people who I know the story, don't know the story, there's things going on, then you put something out there, that turns out to be wrong, then there's the backlash.
Then it swings back to you, yeah.
And then so within that backlash, was there a moment in particular where you're like, and I think this happens in life in general, where you go, you can see sort of the wave of anything coming, and I've found this recently where you see that wave coming, then you're in the wave for a bit, and then you have to take hold of it. You have to grab control. When was that moment? What was that moment?
Ironically, it was before anything even happened.
You saw it coming.
But I was the only person who did. I remember when everybody was talking about it, and this is when everybody is entirely convinced everything is true, and we're thinking, everybody was thinking, there wasn't a single person who was like, oh, let's get him. It was all like, oh man, I really don't like the fact that I've platformed a guy who could do these type of things. And everybody was so upset and devastated. Said, I had such a great time. We all had a brilliant month just hanging out. And we hadn't done that in a year. And it all gets ruined in an instant. And everybody's just kind of like, oh, well, what do? We've got to take responsibility for this and, let people know. And then I remember saying, got to be super careful with this. You've got to make sure that it's 100% true. I spoke to the girl so many times just to see if her story changed or anything along those lines. And then I remember I spoke to everybody. It was talked about because obviously we're all friends, so everybody's talking about this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And it was one of those things where everybody went, oh, well, I'm sure we'll probably tweet about it, and then everybody will kind of know, and then we'll just move on. And I remember being like, no, that is not going to happen. Yeah. That is not going to happen at all. And I said, this is going to go on for years. I said, this will follow everybody here for years. And they all were like, no, I mean...
And these other people, are they all people within the business of
they're
this commentary?
They're all YouTubers.
So they understand the sort of reverberations of drama.
Yeah, but I mean, quite clearly not to the extent of what it really was. It was nice. Because I remember saying, I was like, look, if you aren't convinced, I went, don't do it. I was convinced. That's why I went as far as I did. I was wholeheartedly believed it, and that's why I even said anything, because it went on for 3-4 months, and I was like, I don't really know. I don't really believe most of this.
Yeah.
And then a few more things come out, a few more messages, other people in the friendship group say stuff, everybody starts going, well, he did this, he did that, he's done that. And then it becomes this thing where it's like, oh, well, if all 30 5 of your mates that know this guy all think it's true, then you can't really. How can you deny that? So everybody's kind of on it.
And then being a public figure, do you then feel obliged?
Yes.
You feel like there's no choice but to say something.
Yeah, because I know that I would be angry if other people I knew knew that one of their friends was doing this at such a high level with like their huge influence, and they didn't do anything. Because there are people who do that, and also because I have seen people cover for their friends when they know that they are so guilty, to the point where when I was sat there, I as I said, I had no second thoughts. I really believed it, and I thought, well, if I believe it, then I should say something, because that's what I would want everybody to do. You know, hold people accountable for stuff like that.
So, because I think this is really difficult, because I'm not. I think if it was me, I think I would have gone. The only thing I would say is like something as serious as this. I don't know the answers, so I'm not going to. I probably that is obviously a huge element of it. That is a massive element of it, which we're all forgetting. But I mean, in terms of being in your shoes, and this is all hypothetical. Part of me wonders if, for me, as someone who that isn't my job to. I mean, it is on football, but it's a bit more. It's an easier thing spin. For someone whose job is to have an opinion and be that kind of, to a point, that like moral guide for a lot of people. Which I know you're laughing at.
It's terrifying, but it's
terrifying.
And that's kind of what you get. You make comments.
Yeah.
You go around saying this is bad, this is good, and then if I just sat there and went, oh well, I'm not going to say anything about this, everybody would have been going, why this is huge? Why are you ignoring it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened to stuff before where people know that I've met people briefly, and they'll be like, oh, well, you haven't made a video on this, you haven't made a video on that, why don't you make videos on your mates?
But this was so close to home, you felt like you had to say something.
I'd sent out tweets, I was never going to make a video.
Yeah.
And people so badly wanted there to be a video, which I think was almost terrifying. The amount of tweets I got being like, you got to make a video. And this is when people believed it. Because there's such a weird thing. When I first tweeted it, the tweet got like 10,000 likes, and it was like, good that you believe women first over your friends. That's so good. Then 6 months later, it's, how could you backstab your friend? This woman is a liar.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can people say that first one and then say the second one? Like, that was the one that kind of made everything insane to me. And because then it was this weird thing where I was like, obviously I make these videos, and then people are like, all right, well, you should make a video on it, so everybody knows. Like, why don't you share this with your whole audience? I was like, because I don't want to share this with everybody. I'd rather not share it at all. But because I am a public figure, I felt like I had absolutely no choice in the matter. Like, I had to say something somewhere.
Yeah, because I think it's such a unique topic for someone like you in your situation to be involved in, because there are sides, but it's ultimately, it's not totally quantified. You know, the evidence is difficult to get to, and it's not something it's not something you want to talk about.
No, ever. Didn't even want to talk about it when it was going on.
Yeah,
but then you can't just avoid it.
So
something you could just ignore.
So then sort of the backlash comes, and were you quite level-headed in that moment because you saw it coming?
It was one of those things where I was so aware of it happening to the point where it happened, I was like, all right, well, this was what was going to happen anyway. It was going to go both ways, because there's always going to be the people who believe it and the people who don't.
Yeah.
And no matter which way it goes, there's going to be a split. Not everybody's going to believe it. Not everybody's going to think it's false. And then when more evidence comes out, some people won't switch, some people will. So I was always sat there saying, look, no, you're not going to get everybody to agree with you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to, like, there's going to be backlash. There's going to be people who are such huge fans of him and me, and even just the smaller people involved in general. So I was like completely aware of everything that was going on, but
it's easier said than done, though, isn't it? Surely, like, I imagine detaching yourself from that.
It was hard, but also I feel like it was so needed in general. Like, YouTube can dictate so much for so many people. Like, just because, especially if you upload as regularly as I do, it's like every 2-3 days you constantly get like that hit of, oh, I'm uploading, everybody loves me. I'm uploading, everybody loves me. And there's this big interesting thing for me where I've had people who have been like cancelled before in the past, and as soon as their videos could be still be getting the same views, but as soon as like that social blade isn't green, they completely fall out of all love of it. They realise that they hate making the videos they make, they hate doing it, they hate the person they are, hate everything they've been doing. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. It was more like, as soon as I got out of that flow and I was like, oh, this is the first time in like 3 years I haven't been a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like,
what? Getting the hit.
Yeah, because I just stopped uploading. I was like, what actually am I if I'm not making all these videos? And that was like a big, almost life-changing moment where I was like, I need to actually stop doing other things and just rebuild my life. Because it was also one of those things where one of the things I had was, I'm not a YouTuber really at the moment. I wasn't making videos, I wasn't tweeting, wasn't really on Instagram. And then you kind of realise that you have no use to like 99% of the people around you, because they are all YouTubers talking to YouTubers because they're YouTubers.
I've heard you say that a lot about being a YouTuber. And so you not uploading for 2 months, so that means you're not allowed to be a YouTuber anymore. You're not allowed that.
Well, it's like
title.
I wasn't doing it. It was like I took myself out of it. It was like I wasn't uploading or anything along those lines. Wasn't on social media, so it was like.
But for you to be that brutal on yourself, that suggests to me that the being a YouTuber is something you really hold up.
Oh, it's something that I think it's a title that so many people wish they had. Like, it's like being a footballer, right? Like when you see footballers who aren't doing, like when you see people like Ross Barkley who are going out for drinks and throwing pizzas at people, you think, look, you got a job that so many millions of people wish you could have. So for me, I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm doing a good service to what I was meant to be doing, especially somebody who makes commentary videos. Like I'm going to be good at, you know, putting judgment on stuff and so that. So I felt like I needed those 2 months out to just really reassess like why I was doing it, what I was doing, who I was friends with, why I was friends with people, just all that stuff. Like I needed a huge reassessment and like, am I happy with everything that's gone on? Because it was more like,
and can you live without it?
Yeah, and could I carry on not doing this? And obviously the answer was no. That's why I came back and started making videos. But it was also one of those things where for me, it was nice to come back, and I was under the impression I was like, oh, people are going to hate me forever, and you know, there's no such thing as forgiveness on the internet. Cancel culture is final. Even though I so one of the things that didn't really worry too much. So I don't really believe in it. I don't really believe in it.
The tenses are all wrong when we're talking about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I remember when I was cancelled. Like it doesn't.
It doesn't make any sense because I'm still at that time. I remember I was like, I'm cancelled now. Nobody's going to want to speak to me, nobody's going to touch me. To be honest, there are people who will just be like, no, I can't be near any negativity at all. It's bad for my brand, and they're just gone. No matter how good friends you are, they will just bounce. And did
that happen?
Yeah, I had some very, very good friends of mine almost treat me like I was like a ghost in the room. It was like, and that was one of the reasons why I stopped uploading.
And are they? What's been your process around that? Are they gone from your life now, or have you just had a switch towards your thoughts on them and carried on, or what happened?
For me, I, especially as somebody who has like, you know, done that thing that I obviously shouldn't have done, shouldn't have got involved in at all. I personally will always go down the line of like, you should try and at least forgive first before you just axe people completely. With everything in general. So for me, it was like, number one, I tell those people, I'm like, look, you were acting so differently. I'm very open and honest to those people, and I spoke about a lot of the people who did switch up like that in general, just to kind of like figure out why and what was going on. But for me, it's always like, I would much prefer that everybody could just move on from everything. Otherwise, like, what's the point? Like in the same way where the guy was falsely accused, like if he can't come back from it, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So everybody should be able to move on from a situation like that, especially because it is so jarring. Like I've been on so many ends of that. I've been on the area where like there are people who have falsely accused so many people and vice versa, to the point where I'm like, when all that stuff went down in general and everybody was acting all differently, I was like, it's not something that like 20-year-olds are used to dealing with.
Yeah.
So I feel like everybody gets a bit of room to be a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. Well, that's it, because I think, like, coming here as well and to chat to you as a 20-year-old dude who's been so successful in a field that they want to be in, but you are 20.
It's
like,
terrifying.
That is, yeah. So this, being you, I think must, at times, this is why I think we're all battling with balance. I think we're all constantly, especially now, like battling with balance between people that are in the room, people that are out in the wider world, you yourself trying to move forward and be better. And so for you, with the sort of big jump that you had in 2018,
Yeah.
and to be at 1.7 now in terms of subscribers, the sort of the change of such a quick period of time for a 20-year-old whose occupation is towing the line of judgment. How do you cope with that?
Well, it's one of those things where the video's kind of like, I had such a casual approach to YouTube because I prefer watching somebody who has just really turned the camera on and just kind of started shooting the shit. That's the way that I prefer to watch videos.
Yeah.
I was almost, in a way, I kind of built myself up like this bit of a downfall where I would make videos on pretty much anything that moved, to the point where I had an opinion on stuff that in reality most people just wouldn't even talk about, so you wouldn't even know what anybody. But I'm directly blasting that out to the internet. And it was after about a year and a half of doing that, I kind of realised, like, alright, yeah, like, maybe like half of those videos were mistakes in general, because I don't believe any of that stuff anymore, so on and so forth. So it's one of those things where when stuff like this comes around, now I'd love to say that my stuff has changed very massively in like the last 6 months, especially. In a sense, was 6 months ago, I'd be like, very serious videos. I always liked being like, this is my opinion, this is how I feel, and, you know, take it or leave it. And then now my whole thing is, if I make a video, I try and write all of the serious stuff out as much as possible. If the stuff is serious, it's probably sarcastic, or if not, I've tried to change the tone, because number one, it's not fun, it's depressing. Making serious videos all the time is not an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that was something I did want to ask you, because I think the few times we've met, you're just a nice, happy, positive dude. But the content that, and I've noticed the difference. And I also think, and we can get onto it maybe a bit later on, I think the podcast is brilliant for you, like as a person who makes content, and that's what you're about, making content. I think something that's a bit broader, which allows you to go into the sort of nooks and crannies of an issue, I think it's really like healthy for you.
A 10-minute video really limits you.
Yeah.
And that's why when I even make videos on other YouTubers, I'm always thinking they have condensed this down to like,
of course,
10-15 minutes, so you can't really completely annihilate them.
But so getting into commentary, did you, and this might be, please tell me if I'm wrong with this, because these are just thoughts. I wonder about the idea that if you're putting out something that is ultimately, we need to stop, whatever, and there's an element of negativity in that.
Yeah, even if it's just for the title.
Even if it is, and then turn, and bloody hell, it is.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And when that is when you're knowing that works, and you're putting that out there, do you feel like that element of negativity kind of comes back into you?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely one of those things where I'm definitely a very different person to when I was when I started. One of the reasons, when I first started, the videos were very much kind of like, look at this idiot. That would be kind of as far as it went. But then the more and more it gets on, the more people go, I really like when you said this, and you really like when you said that. Even if you don't realise you're doing it, you start to become incredibly influenced by what the people in your comment section are saying, what your audience is saying. And then you start, without even realising it, you start gravitating down a path because either makes you loads of money, which is not like a main driving force for me. For me, it's always just, do people like it? And when I post a serious video, and it would get like 4 times the interaction. And it's not like they were false, it wasn't falsifying the opinion. I definitely believed all the stuff I was saying, all those videos at the time. Never said anything that I didn't believe at that time.
It's human nature, isn't it?
But then you get rewarded for that, and I'm like, oh, what's the next thing that I could like really talk about and like kind of go in on? And then after a while, you realise, I'm like, this isn't the channel I wanted. I didn't want a channel that was like this. I wanted people to think I was funny.
Yeah.
I almost got to a point where I hated what I had built. I was like, I've built like a channel of like 600,000 subscribers, and nobody will watch the stuff that's jokey. They'll be like, I almost have people commenting on certain videos being like, this video was like not serious enough, and I was like, I don't want to be known for that. That was not the plan. I want to be able to do funny things, be able to go on and do more than that. I know you almost dig yourself this hole and you go down this pathway you don't want to go down.
So going back to the moment when it was you're going from, I don't know exactly your numbers, but I know were you in sort of under 100k and then it blew up quite quickly?
So I had about like 4,000 subscribers, and I made a video on one of the content cops IDOPS did on Leafy, and he retweeted it, and the channel doubled in size overnight when I was at college. And then another YouTuber called Pyrocynical, he put me on a video to help get me out of college as a genuine favour, which was huge. That was the jump to full time. So my channel went from like 4k to 100k subs in 3 months.
Wow.
And then just like plateaued, dead. Just like I went like, I shot up 100k subs like no time, and I was thinking, oh, this is great. And it was at the time, there's always people around you. There were people saying to me, you're going to have 2 million subs by the end of the year. Crazy stuff like that. And I'm thinking, oh, what? And they're like, oh, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I never let any of that stuff get to me. I seriously always underestimate everything I'm going to do, because I feel like that just makes me want to work hard. Because if I feel like I'm not going to do very well, I've got to be working at my utmost to achieve the little, and that's how you end up getting the best results out of it. So I never let any of that stuff really get to me, but kind of had that going on. And then my channel just kind of was like very dead for like a year, but I was very happy with making the videos, but they were very much still kind of jokey at that point. And then I made a few serious videos, and then everything just shot up again.
Right. And so then going into that period of time when you're getting almost caught in the cycle of that success that you're so we're all wanting to do well. And when you're going back to what you were talking about being a YouTuber, I struggle with that. Like, I mean, I don't consider myself a YouTuber, and I don't see that word as amazing as you do. And I'm wrong. We're just different in that way, and that's fine. But so for something that you wanted so much, and then you see stuff working, what were the patterns and the structures of those videos that got you to become have 1 million subscribers?
I suppose it was,
for the good or the bad.
Number one, it was mainly just being always so quick to get to like the first opinion, which is funny enough because obviously I get lampooned for being seen as being so quick to judge. A friend of mine, recently, it's one of those things where I would be so fast to the point where, in 24 hours everything can change. But at the time, that was like, I got a very lucky streak where I managed to get like 3-4 months with just like nailing a lot of the stuff that I was making videos on, or keeping it just jokey enough to the point where it wasn't so serious, where really it mattered to that point. It was more like, oh, it's just kind of funny taking the mick out of the situation.
Right. And sorry, by the phrase nailing, do you mean being, in the long run, correct on that person?
Yeah, in general, just in the times where most of the people I made videos on ended up being people who I still don't like to this day. Like, for example, like Rice Gum's somebody I made videos on him back in the day, never really became a fan of him. And there's also people like Logan Paul who now I quite like the bloke, met him a few times. I still agree with the videos that I did back then, but I wouldn't make a video like that on him now, type of thing. So like the videos were very much kind of like they fit the time, the span that they were in, and where I was at that time in terms of the community. And that was kind of what really helped just the channel grow, was just being quick and uploading more than the next guy. I just lived and breathed YouTube. I wasn't being lazy in my opinion or rushing videos. I just really, really like the platform. Like, I've been watching YouTube since I was like 11. So I've been on the platform for like 9 years. So it's one of those things where, for me, I was uploading so many videos, and it was always this weird thing. I constantly get this question where people be like, oh, obviously you're just doing commentates, it's like the new in thing. And I was like, oh no, I love making YouTube videos. I love uploading them. It's not even necessarily the process. I just love seeing the video go up and seeing what people had to say, just that part. So I just constantly was posting, and that was what really set the channel apart a lot of time, because most of the people I know were uploading once every like week and a half, whereas I was uploading like 4 times a week.
Right.
And that was like a big thing back then.
What about editorially? Editorially, were there things that you think both work, probably still work now, because when you're making content, there are things that you kind of learn along the way. But looking back, editorially, are there certain things that you think work well for you, or have allowed those videos to do well?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to keep the videos at the same pace for me, always. So there was points where I tried to really like fast-paced videos. I tried to edit videos in a way kind of something like Jackmate does. But that just does not fit what I'm doing at all.
That's so interesting you say that, because there are a load of channels that will go, do this to get 10 million subscribers, all this nonsense. And although some of it is right, and one of them will say that you should change the pace.
Yeah. You
should go quick for a bit, then take a second, then go quick again, just to kind of put people off almost a touch.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. That wasn't the case for you.
No, for me, I always felt that for me the things that I always try and keep in the videos from back then, because you have to, if you completely change them, it's like changing the person entirely. Is just having that piece where I do just talk for a bit, because that's how I used to do all my videos. I do like 7 minutes of jokes, and the last 3 minutes I go, oh, this is how I actually feel. And I don't think anybody else was doing that or did do it, because it opens you up to so much criticism, obviously, because you're putting your opinion directly out there. And most YouTubers nowadays, especially commentary channels, they'll tell you that they actively avoid giving opinions on subjects, which is crazy, because people think they're tuning in for an opinion, but you're not getting one if you actually watch a lot of them.
Really?
Because they don't want to have the responsibility of actually saying anything, because it can go so horribly wrong. People get so hung up on something, but for you, with something that you just felt on the day, you could just be recording in a bad mood. And that's sometimes I go back and look at videos and I go, oh, I was having a terrible day that day.
Really?
And that's for me now. Is I try, the one thing I say I change is that now I do not record videos if I know I'm not having a good day. Whereas back then I would record whatever, because I would be like, if I make a video, I'll feel better if it does well. Whereas now I'm like, can't have that reliance to YouTube,
right?
Because it's dangerous, I think.
And so you didn't have that a year ago then?
No, I would just post to get through anything. To the point where I was just posting videos where it's like angry, you could tell, like unneedingly angry, like just videos that were almost unnecessary to an extent.
Do you think you were aware of that at the time?
No way. I thought, oh, people will love how raw, because that's the thing everybody always says, don't they? They're like, oh, I'm so honest and true to myself. So if you upload a video like that, kind of where you're just going in and you're just being like raw and angry and all that stuff.
This is me.
Yeah,
this is me.
It's like, this is me. That's just how I was feeling that day. And there is always a way with YouTube and YouTubers where you can excuse the behaviour to an extent, especially when you make like opinion pieces. You can always be like, oh well, this is how I was feeling that day. Or when you send out a tweet that people don't like, you can just kind of be like, oh well, people just don't like the truth. And that was kind of the trap that you kind of get yourself in. Whereas now I just, especially after all the stuff that happened, it's like a big wake up call. I was like, can't just do this stuff blindly and hope for the best and then go, oh well, that was just me being me. It doesn't work that way.
Can I just say, I've just seen George for the first time. I've never seen his face before. I just saw it there.
He just walks in, he gets a glass of water. That's what he does. He does that during every podcast. Wow. He'll just walk in, he'll just get something and leave. Sometimes just start cooking, so we're glad he didn't do that today.
I didn't expect such a...
Yeah, I know. He's so huge.
So your job is having an opinion.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So the forming of your opinion and then the giving of it, how has that... What are your thoughts on... Because we're living in a world now where everyone has an opinion all the time. And I'm one of the... I drift between snapping and being too lippy, and then the opposite, we're going, well, I haven't really got anything nice to say, so I'm just going to keep quiet. Neither of which I'm sure are right or wrong. It's just what works for me. Yourself, I think Jack as well, a lot of people from the commentary community, they're not programmed, but it's in their personality that they like to have an an opinion on something.
I think it's also to get rewarded for it. Like when you say something, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, man, I've been thinking that for ages. So glad somebody said it." You know, it's one of those things where.
So do you get excited by the award for your bravery? Or bravery?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, it's like especially when you find something when nobody's really talked about it, and you come out and everybody goes, "Oh man, so glad somebody finally said it." And that's kind of how commentary started originally. Because I remember when Jack started, he was hated. Nobody liked Jack. I liked him. I loved his videos. That's why I watched him. He had about 60k subs. But in the British community as a whole, he was quite clearly an outsider.
Right.
And then commentary took this weird turn after about 3-4 years. And ironically, you could almost stack it up with like the way that like politics has gone in general, in terms of the way that people elect people like Donald Trump and stuff like that. Where people kind of just got fed up with that normal programming. And they were like, let's just throw these like anarchists in, like Jack, who just go in and go, "Oh, fuck what you're doing. I hate this. I don't like that." And people almost started seeing that as like the real thing. Right. And like, "Oh, that's real and that's true." To the point where it's weird that negativity is associated with the truth, like directly. People are like, "Well, if you're saying something bad about it, you must really mean it." And people don't realise that sometimes, like with commentary especially, like a lot of it just can go in a direction where, because you're being rewarded so much for like, having these opinions and saying all this stuff, where you start to almost change them without even realise you're doing it. Like you see something, you're automatically looking for what you could pick apart.
Right. And is there a certain way that you're looking?
Yeah,
I think naturally you're naturally looking for the worst, aren't you?
Yeah. There are places where you there's certain genres on YouTube where, you know, if you go to certain areas, you can find something that, you know, people will not like. Like if you aim at British rich YouTubers most of the time, you'll probably be able to find a shot where they leave their Rolex in, and you could go ham on them for it. And that's the thing. And then at the point, that's when for me I started being like, "Oh, I don't know if I like this anymore." Because I got to a point where I was a big fan of watching YouTube videos, and then every time I turned on the YouTube video, I couldn't enjoy it because I was like, "Oh, well, he's talking shit.
Right.
He's lying.
I can pick
He's
this apart.
definitely not telling the truth." Not even to the extent I was going to make a video on it, but just like I'd watch stuff. I watched stuff my friends were saying. I go, "I don't think he means that. I don't believe that. I don't like what he said there." And then you realise, "Oh no, I've gone too far down the rabbit hole."
And the reason I was asking about like the editorial of it and what worked well is because when you then have a community, would I be right in saying that when something happens, you know, this is the way the algorithm works, guys, is that if someone does something on Belle Delphine, and if you can get on there suggested,
oh yeah,
happy days. So you're then
it's
all going to talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
But then also, does everyone go down the same route on the same thing, or are people brave enough to go, "I actually think he's done all right"?
My biggest pet peeve of commentary, which is why I started to hate it, was that I knew people who would just kind of be like, "Oh well, I can't say that because he said it," and I'd be like, "What? What does that mean?" So you were going to say what he said, then you watched his video, which is why I do not watch other commentary videos, just because if you start going down that avenue where you're like, "Well, I was going to say that, but now I have to say something different," that's mental. You've just changed your opinion because somebody else had that opinion first. That's not being true to yourself. That's not being honest. You're not making a critical commentary video anymore. You're just going, "Can't say that because he said it first." And that's why the weirdest thing in commentary is a big thing where people I know would be like, "Oh, I can't watch the video, so you say what somebody else said like a day later." I'm like, "Yeah, because I agree with him."
Yeah.
So,
but I guess this is the sort of behind the scenes element of all of this stuff, is that actually, as much as being right, you've got to be original.
Yeah, which makes no sense because you can't, with opinions, originality, the only thing that should come into it with originality is the jokes, which is why my thing was always like, look, I don't watch people for different opinions. Nobody actually watches commentary for different opinions.
It's insane.
They just want you to be funny. That's all they want at the end of the day. So when I got caught down that rabbit hole of like, "Oh, you know, gotta say this, gotta do that. Oh, maybe I should change this, maybe I should change that." You start realising like, people actually don't actually care about that. And I think that's a lot of the things that a lot of people kind of didn't realise, because they were like, "Oh no, people want me to say something new, bring something," and that was one of the biggest criticism I think I always remember was always, "Oh, you don't bring anything new to the table," and I'd be like, "Yeah, that's fine by me."
I guess is there So there's the serious videos that have done well, and then there's the fun ones, which entertain, right?
But which always do well over time, which is the
Yeah.
hardest thing. But because YouTube also is this weird thing where everybody I know, if a video doesn't do well in the first 2 days, they are like crippled by it. But then all of us in about 6 months' time will go, oh, that video hit 1 million. Oh, that one did it too. That video flopped the first day, and then you kind of sit there and you go, oh, I have mates who've deleted videos because they only got like 300k in a week. And I remember,
imagine?
and then that's mental. I remember, and I say to him, I'm like, do you remember when you couldn't get 3k in a day?
Yeah, well, that's it.
And now you're comparing yourself to everybody you know, and and that's the thing. It's like that comparison thing.
How are you with that?
I refuse to do it. I will never compare myself with anybody else I know unless it's in terms of quality of content. I think comparing views and all that stuff is crazy because these are the same people who make videos where they go, oh, they don't deserve 2 million views. So if you are thinking like that, you got to think, well, then if you think they completely don't deserve it, you got to think that that's just the way the cookie crumbles at the end of the day. Like views go places that just sometimes don't even make sense. That's just YouTube. So for me, I think trying to base yourself, like comparing views and subscriber statistics and all that, that is the deepest and darkest slippery slope you could fall down.
But that's the game.
That is the game. But I try not to play the game as much as possible in a way where I almost feel like...
Now, or...
Have
you always been okay with that?
My way is that I know how the game works, and I used to spend hours with my mate working out the algorithm and all that, almost as a way to be like, alright, well, if a video doesn't do well, then I know why it didn't do well, and all stuff like that. Just kind of... I'm always the person who studies like the game more than anybody else I know. Just because of the fact there are so many things that I want to do to avoid really playing it massively. Like if I wanted to play the game hugely, you start up a kids channel and you quit making commentary videos and you take that $20 CPM. But then I would make those videos for about a month and then I'd quit.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like to an extent, like I know how to play like a commentary game because that's the game that I like playing. But I don't play that game with other people. I have mates who would compare themselves to channels that are completely different just because they're doing well. And it's like, you're not even in the same lane. Why are you doing this? You're making yourself hate your videos, going, maybe I'm doing the completely wrong thing. Whereas to me, I'm like, no, I'm in the right place. I know I'm in the right place. I'm just going to kind of play with what I've got there.
Do you talk about the game there? It makes me think about that when I was chatting to Will, when I spoke to him a few times. Obviously, YouTube guys are close. Is there similarities in the two of you in terms of the understanding of the game of YouTube and how you've cracked it a little bit in terms of there being topics and then you discussing them? There is a similarity there.
Yeah, me and Will know our formulas very well. I think that's one of the things. Even George as well. I think us three have kind of cracked that. We know what we do that works for us, and we know how to replicate that across YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff.
What would you suggest your formula is then?
My formula is being just generally a bit more personable than everybody else. I do like the idea that people do watch my stuff because they like me, which is why it is so much harder when obviously that stuff flips, because it's like I really put myself out there to the point where, like, the biggest upside of my channel is that if you like me, you're going to watch my stuff. The biggest downside to my channel is if you don't like me, there's no way getting around that.
Right.
Whereas with someone like Will and that lot, I think Will makes videos that are so great for like such a wide audience and all that, where he could almost kind of survive being
he can continue to be the dick that
horrible
he is.
and bullying me on the second channel. But no, I think that's kind of we all have our niches. I think that's the thing. You need to know why people tune into you on YouTube. Otherwise, because there are points where I remember I had like this weird breakdown at one point when I had like 100k subs when it completely plateaued, and I was like, what did I change? What did I do wrong? Is it me? To the point where there is like this period, it's like this 2-month period where I look at these videos and I'm like, oh my god, it's like I'm playing a character every other video. To the point where like the personality changes so much from video to video. It's like terrifying.
Yeah.
Because YouTube can have like that much control over the way that you act as a person to an extent.
Well, I think with so many sort of external forces on you, and then you having to be this guy who judges things and then has an opinion on things, flipping that onto yourself. What's your opinion of yourself at the moment?
At the moment, I suppose.
Do you find it easy to have a fair opinion on yourself?
I would not say it's fair. I'm so critical. Always will be the most critical person of myself.
Why do you think that is?
Which is why, because of the fact that I know there's so much at stake. There's so much at stake to the point where I can't just be like, I know a lot of people when they go through like a big drama, they're kind of like, oh man, well that's just how YouTube goes, and people are stupid and they don't know anything that's going on, so you could just move on with it. Whereas me, I was like, no, I've got to like have a big reassessment. I take all of it massively to heart. Almost that's kind of the downfall, which is why I end up involving myself in situations like that to an extent where I don't need to, because I really do care about making sure I'm doing my best, I'm at my best, and I'm posting stuff that is worthy, because it's always one of those things where I always wanted to be a YouTuber, always wanted it since I was like 11, and I know people who, whether it ended today or tomorrow, they've got plan B's, C's and D's, whereas I'm all in on this. Like, this is what I want to do, and I want to do it right, and I want to make sure that I'm somebody who people would want to watch and enjoy. So for me, it's always like I'm super critical.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. That's why I deal with it a lot better now. But for the first like year and a half, I was having like severe, like really bad breakdowns like every like 2 weeks almost, because it's like to the point where there is stuff that has like, I had a podcast with my mate James that was going very, very well, but because I put so much pressure on it, because I had so many other ones fail before, and I was like, is it me? Is it him? Is it us? Is it what we're doing? Are we doing it right? I almost like worked myself into like killing it dead. Like almost you will it into existence. So because of the amount of pressure, where a lot of my friends, like, I envy George and Will and James and Fraser's almost like lax approach. They're so like, oh well, if it went this way, it went that way, I'm like, I can kind of move on with that. Whereas for me, it's like, there are days where when like the cancelled thing first happened, because I kind of like taught myself to be like, this is probably going to happen, so I tried to like prepare myself. But when it happened, it really felt I remember I woke up one day, and I think it's about 2 weeks into it, and every day feels so long, and I was just like, it's like the world's over. Like, what do I do? Where can I even go? And it was actually a terrible timing, because I was actually at the Challenger Games, surrounded by YouTubers at the
wearing
time.
shin pads.
Wearing shin pads. And I was the only cancelled person there at the time.
That's another really strange sentence.
And that, yeah, exactly, it is. It is so odd. Especially when you stand next to Logan and Jake Paul, and I'm thinking, oh, me? Compared to them? But no, it was like one of those things where YouTube, with stuff like that, like, it drives you like absolutely crazy. Especially with all that stuff going on at the same time when you're surrounded by YouTubers and all that. So like, having that approach, and almost like that game plan that I had during that time, it kind of like, the thing with YouTube is so fickle that anything can go out the window at any point. Like there are days where stuff we've been doing that's been working for so long, for 6 months, and has been like generating millions and millions of views, paying the rent happily, and then suddenly one day a video don't do well, and everybody gets around and it's like, what do we do? Do we have to change something? What do we change? Do we change everything that we're doing completely? Like everything? Yeah. And it's like this it's like turns on. It's like everybody is one bad day away from a huge breakdown. To the point where sometimes like somebody will get one bad video and you don't see him for like 2 weeks. You don't see a video, you don't see him come outside or anything like that. Can't do anything to get people out, because they're just sat there just being like, oh, is this the last time? Is this the last video? Because that's the thing, one day you are going to upload your last video that bangs. And that is a terrifying amount of pressure to put on yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about this a bit recently in terms of the sort of, if you get to a point, what's worse, having success, not having success but enjoying your life, or having success but it going and not having enjoyed
depending on how you answer this, makes you almost seem like a dickhead, because it only seems where when I was a nobody YouTuber and people would be like, oh man, becoming irrelevant is like the worst thing ever. I'm thinking, oh god, what I would do just to be a full-time YouTuber for a day. People do that with footballers as well, don't they? It's like this huge thing with footballers when they retire, where a lot of them just become incredibly depressed.
Well, I think the reason for that is, understandably, a lot of people are and want to be defined by their job. And
when you've not got it anymore, what are you? So what I said, when I had that cancelling, I was like, I literally remember being like, sat down, and I was thinking, if I'm not a YouTuber, why does anybody I know actually want to talk to me? Because originally, everybody, it got to the point where I was like, every single friend I have right now is friends with me because I watched the video and went, that was funny. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not making videos anymore, what am I to these people? And obviously, I am friends with them. But you do not, but because of, my job is also on judging people and being judged, even if it wasn't commentary, even if it was a vlogger, if it was anything, you're being judged, that's the way the job goes. It's almost like this terrifying kind of huge, like, oh no, my whole life is based on literally the most, like, fickle opinions of life, to the point where it leaks into everything.
And that's where I think we all need to constantly try and I think that's what I mean. There's a lot for you guys to deal with. You have to find a way to keep finding perspective, because actually, it doesn't seem like it, but your happiness really isn't it feels like it's those big outside things, but it's actually those simpler, personal things. But I'm saying this now, and I feel like a hypocrite because I feel totally determined by, can I get to where I want to be, which is fine. But I think you need to. I'm trying to learn to understand these are two different things in your life.
There's one. If I could give like any form of advice to anybody, it was actually so simple what I did to just kind of like fix. Like, I'm happier, weirdly, after that. The cancelling was the best thing ever happened to me because it gave me perspective that I can't just live off being a successful YouTuber all the time. Especially because I was doing so well, and then it was like suddenly it's like so badly, like overnight, to the point where I remember being a YouTuber like 100k subs, and I wasn't standing out or anything like that, just kind of was around. And that was cool, because I still felt really ordinary back then. I was like, people know you're a YouTuber, and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool, but you're not killing it. But when you're killing it, people look at you like you're like a god, to an extent. Some people around you are even like... I had friends of mine who I'd known for ages, like when I moved here, like Will and George and that lot. I remember I think I just complained about something like really like small. I was like, oh, something about maybe like cleaning or whatever. And they were like, everybody envies how you guys are all friends and how great everything's going. And I was like, we're just normal guys. It's so, and they were like, no, you guys have it like sorted. You guys are on it. This is when everybody's done like 1 million views a video, and it was weird hearing that because I was like, I was kind of terrified. People like idolise. Like, these are like friends of mine who are also YouTubers, and they were like, no, you guys want it. Well, what I do to be in that position, and I was just like, oh, this is weird. I don't like that. I don't like. That's the big problem when everything goes like really well. Like it becomes like this almost huge pressure to outperform everything.
But then you're also more concentrating on when is it going to end.
Yes, exactly. Like when I was getting 1 million views a video, every time I uploaded, I was like, oh my god, if this is like, to the point where I remember James Marriott was great for perspective, because Marriott, I remember one day I think a video got like 600k views in a day, which I'd kill for now. I'd love to go back to those days. But they would normally get like 800, and I went, oh man, that sucks. And he literally told me to like fuck off. And he was like, you can't do that. He's like, he was like, 20 days ago, you wouldn't get 600k views in 2 days. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's scary.
But in that moment, that's what you need to concentrate on. Well, no, it's okay to think about it, but understand it. And also have someone like James to go, stop being a fucking dickhead. Yeah. Get your head out of your ass. Because that's the thing. That's why say footballers, they retire and then they get divorced. Because the often the woman who was with them for not the right reasons.
Just because they could call themselves footballers.
So the truth in life is actually understanding who are the guys on the inner circle. Because I think this is a thing for you as well. You spend a lot of your time indoors, right, on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds terrible, but
before the cancelling, like it was like because that was where I got my happiness from, was like making videos. I just make videos all the time.
But I've had moments where I'm struggling between this, like you have these sort of numbers, but they're in this, like, it's so synthetic, and it's not real, but it is real because you see the money that you get at the end of it all. It creates the lifestyle that you've got. But understanding the two and understanding what the two give you and take from you, that's something that you must be battling with a lot.
I think a lot of people don't understand what YouTube takes, and I always get kind of like reputation for a bit of downer on Instagram and that lot, because I like to talk about that a lot because of the fact that it's definitely something where I went into this job idolising it. Like, this is going to be great. It's always going to be great. I just make videos, and I get paid to do it. Don't care how much, just as long as I can pay the bills. And then everybody loves you, and you close off. And that is just like 0.5% of the job. Like, there is so much to it all the time, constantly changing. And especially YouTube now is very different to YouTube back then. YouTube now is in a post-apocalypse world with new regulations all the time that constantly restricting what you can do. It's no longer the upload what you want and get away with it platform. So, like, there's so many things that people just aren't aware of when it comes to YouTube in terms of just that now.
But do you think you were always helping yourself? Because I saw you on Instagram Live, and you were pouring your heart out, and there's a really beautiful honesty to that. But I wondered in that moment, are you actually getting out what you really need from it in that moment?
No, it was one of the things I stopped doing, because it's such a quick like fix where I'm like, oh, glad that
you're seeing hearts, aren't you? You're seeing, you're great.
But it's like, all right, well, I'm glad that, you know, it's nice to be reminded that people still like you, and then, you know, you turn it off. But then that's just not good enough. One of the things that I did, and it's so simple, this is the advice that I was actually going to give, but I sidetrack myself all the time, is that when I was thinking like, oh man, what was it that I did before YouTube? It's such a weird concept. And I was like, I can't remember. And it was one of those things where I was like, if I'm not making a video for like 9 hours every 2 days, what was I doing those 9 hours before? I couldn't remember. Probably school. But even so, I was thinking, oh yes, I was at school. So what was I doing at school? Oh, I was hanging out with my friends. I was like, do I do that anymore? No, I see 2 people maximum a week. Same 2 people, George and Will at the time. And I was thinking, man, like, I sacrificed everything to do YouTube. But the only reason YouTube was going to be fun is because I was going to have all of that and YouTube. Whereas you can always go too far where you go, oh, well, I've worked so hard to get that thing. And you're like, oh, but look at everything you've left behind in the process to be able to get there. The process, there you go, see? It's like in the name.
Very good. Moving forward, is that something you feel like you need to integrate more?
Yes, I mean, that's the thing I did as soon as I came back. I started arranging football matches, because football was such a huge part of my life. And to the point where I stopped, and this is the thing, this is the crazy thing about social media, I stopped tweeting about football, because I used to be a FIFA streamer originally. Yeah. I stopped tweeting about football when I did commentary, because the engagement is literally 90% lower. So I was like, I can't tweet about football anymore because nobody cares. But one of the things I start doing now, I'll delete it sometimes afterwards if we lose.
But who gives a fuck if it doesn't have...
Exactly, that was the problem though. I was in that mindset where I was like, oh man, got to keep up appearances. Every tweet's got to have this many likes, or otherwise they're going to be people in the other room going, oh man, Alex has fallen off. Oh, Alex's tweets aren't doing well. Because that's the type of stuff that teenage YouTubers do. And it's crazy. But this is the thing I do now, where I started arranging these football games like every 3 days, or I go bowling. And I pay completely out of pocket, because some people really struggle to pay for anything. Not because they don't have money, just because they're lazy. It's to the point where I will be like, for my own sanity, I'll fork out, it's like £100 a go to do football when we play. And I will pay like 10 games in a row, just because I'm like, I need this for me. I need to be out doing this, because that's also the thing, like,
I think that's
using that resources that I gained from YouTube to pump back into keeping yourself sane, which is what I wasn't doing before. I was just hoarding and just being like, I'll just make videos is fun. To the point where my videos don't become fun anymore, because you have no perspective.
Yeah. You got you got to look out for yourself a little bit. And I think I'm finding that I'm doing this spinning thing at the moment, and there's so many lessons, there's so many constant lessons, and also just the smugness of getting outside, doing something, paying into yourself a little bit. It's such a small thing.
Exercise is such a game changer.
Yeah, man.
I remember when I was super depressed when I was 16. And I actually quit YouTube at this point, so I didn't YouTube for ages. It was after the Twitch channel died off. And I remember I stayed indoors for 2 months, which is almost worse because you're sat in the same place where you were streaming and making videos, but you're just not doing that anymore. So you're just constantly sat there thinking, oh, I'm never going to have that job anymore. Which is great, because that's one of the reasons why I work so hard. I have been full-time and lost it. So for me, I have that perspective that everybody else doesn't. When most people, when they start, it just goes up forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when it crashes, whereas for me, I went up, down, up, down, up, down. And when it went up again, I was like, oh, my thought process was always never let this go. But now my thought process is always never let any of the past bits go, because you just lose yourself in it.
I think that as life goes on, I think you'll find this more and more, especially as someone who's currently life is about having an opinion about stuff a lot of the time. Is there are two sides to everything, not just what's right and what's wrong, but in your staying inside and going outside, right, having a relax and going out and going for a run, feeling your weaknesses are your strengths are probably your weaknesses as well, like all of those things. And I think that's sometimes where if I'm leaning too far down this sort of I'm being hard on myself route, what I'm trying to get better at is understanding that other side of for me as well.
Perspective
and that,
is,
again, it's that balance, isn't it?
Perspective is definitely for me key. It's something that I kind of lost in general. When everything starts going great, it's weird. I struggled for ages on YouTube where I was earning $10 a day, 700 quid a month rent was when I lived with all of my mates, and we were doing streams. We had to down vodka to be able to pay the rent, and it was a terrible experience. Living in a broke terrible house in the middle of nowhere. I literally moved from New Milton, which is on the coast near Bournemouth, all the way to Durham, which is next to Scotland. So I left everything behind, all my friends, all my family, all of that. And that was the 2 years from that point onwards, from 100k to 300k subscribers, was painful. It was not fun. It was the worst experience of my life, which is crazy because and that was the thing, I grew to hate YouTube because I was like, how could I be so depressed yet still be a full-time YouTuber? And then as soon as everything just went away, I just completely forgot about all of that, and I was like, everything's great, and it's always been brilliant, and I can't remember the days where I was crying myself to sleep back in a bed with no sheets or mattresses on because I couldn't afford it, so I was just basically sleeping on the floor. Didn't remember any of that. All goes out the window, and I think that's the thing. That's why perspective is such a huge key. Because I've seen people who a few months ago were just finishing uni debt, who now they are almost completely different people. And I know, and that definitely happened for me. And that's one of the things where a lot of us recently kind of got around and were we need to kind of start doing things again, because we all stopped doing stuff. We all stopped doing, and that's also when you lose yourself, because then you do become just a YouTuber.
That's it.
And I think that's the last thing you actually really want.
Yeah, in a year's time, because I think these are the cycles for you at this moment in time. I think when you get a bit older, then you have a bigger body of work to kind of go, oh, okay, I remember it was like this and this.
It's crazy. Every year is so different.
And yeah, it has been so crazy for you every year. What are your aims personally for next year?
For me, it's subscriber goals was something that I used to set myself, but after everything that's happened over the last year, it's trying to attach any form of happiness to numbers is, for me,
when you've achieved that.
Yeah, it's I did the million, and after the million, I was kind of anything else is a blessing. I'll take anything from this point onwards. I'm happy. For me, it's honestly, I just want to have a bunch of projects going, which I am super proud of showing to anybody. That's what I've been trying to do. And I mean, one of the things I've been doing recently is just trying to work on more of the stuff that I wanted to do back when I was a kid, going on Sky Sports and talking about football was a huge thing for me.
Cool, yeah.
That was somebody said you'd be doing that. 3-4 years ago, especially coming on as a YouTuber as well, I would have gone, yeah, that's not ever going to happen. That's a big jackpot. So for me, it's just like crossing off things that are more for me, and not because I'm like, I've got to do this, because if I don't, then that year's counted as a failure on YouTube.
Do you think career-wise it's difficult for people of your age because you've grown up and there's this like love of YouTube and understandable sort of business acumen that you can have at the age of 12, where you want to be a YouTuber because you can have enough money to live off that? But I feel like after that, there aren't those role models that you could sort of hang your hat on totally, because the landscape's still fresh. Yet. It's still so fresh.
And that's the most terrifying thing. It's like, I have actually managed to get my career basically by, I looked at people who paved the way before me, like Syndicate, who I'm lucky, he's a good friend of mine now, lovely bloke, and super great with advice and everything. But I basically, he was like 6-7 years ahead of me in terms of being a full-time YouTuber. So I feel like the most of it, when people were asking me like, how do you come up with all these ideas and stuff, I was basically like, I just kind of used Tom as like a blueprint. I was just kind of like following in that direction. But then it got to the point where I kind of like reached. So he's like, company. Everybody's kind of like launching companies and stuff now. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be doing that yet. That's a bit. I don't have the time. He's at retirement stage, but even so, like getting to that, I can't even imagine what getting to like retirement stage in YouTube is.
Well, that's it, and I think when it comes to say the grit you need to achieve things, often it's about having a purpose. It being more than just a job, it's a purpose. And so if it's a purpose, often if you can have this sort of North Star of a role model to go, oh, you do it like this guy, then there is something to allow you to sort of get around everyone else, because I just want to be
you need a pathway.
Heavyweight champion of the world or whatever. So I copy what Muhammad Ali did. Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to boxing. But for
enough of that.
So for you guys, and I think for a lot of people probably watching this who like want to do this or want to be a content creator or whatever, I think that's something to think about. I don't have the answers for that, but I because I think once your purposeful role model, Syndicate, you've reached that. Yeah. So now you need a new guy.
Yeah, I mean,
or girl.
It looks like I'm going to end up doing boxing. Because that's what JJ does.
Really
so
big,
I suppose.
Really
yeah,
big.
that's where everybody else goes. I won't be going down the boxing route. But in terms of like, KSI's one of those people I also massively admire, in the sense that he has done everything to the point, but he wanted to an extent. Not like he just does everything. But like, he's done everything that he wanted. And that's what I want to be. Like, for me, it's like, I want to get to the point where I'm like, I want to do everything in kind of like stages. I always saw my career as in stages. Like, I did podcasts, had a really successful one, very happy with that. Still doing one now that I love, the Internet Sensation podcast with Kieran Carlin, which is like so much fun just to be able to sit down and talk. And they're all very different. So like, Happy Hour was like just a bunch of guys having a laugh. Campcast was that duo thing. And then the Internet Sensation podcast is a lot more kind of structured. So I feel like I've done everything I wanted to do. I've done 3 different types of shows. With my YouTube channel, I've done the personal commentary YouTube channel. I feel like right now what I'm doing is what I imagine what a YouTuber was, so I could cross that off the list. Did the Sky Sports thing, so I've done TV, so that's great as well. But I'd also love to do more stuff like music and move into that direction like every other YouTuber in the world does. So I'm going to start drop a hip hop album by the end of the year. I'm not doing that. That's a joke. I'm not dropping a hip hop album by the end of the year. But at the same time, like, I have like, I'm very detailed at. Well, I ask my friends kind of like, what's your plans? I'm almost going to be like, I wonder what. And they're all like, make videos every day. And I'm like, is that it? I'm like, it couldn't be me. I'm always like, that's like the thing that I do. That's like that's what keeps me moving. But I'm always thinking, what's the next? Like the clothing.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the next thing that I'm going to be doing?
I think the good thing for you is that you are a deep thinker, and so you are thinking about these things. I think that's half the battle, because then, say something does drop, then you can kind of go, well, okay, I was sort of thinking about this anyway, and you'll find the right call because you're already thinking about it.
Yeah, the biggest worry with always having all of these ideas and so many ideas all the time is that it's hard to get them done. Because, for example, let's say I want to do music, I'd have to invest like 6 hours a day into that. And then if I do that, there's always part of me be thinking, what if that was the wrong path now? And maybe I should do that in 3 years' time. And that can stop you from putting off everything off. Because there's always a time for everything, more than anything else. There's always that perfect time to do something. And that's like that was always my biggest struggle. Was always like, should I be doing this now? Or should I be putting all my focus into my channel? Should I be boxing people? Should I be putting 8 hours into going to the gym? It's hard. That's the biggest thing for me. Is that I do have so many options. It's almost too many. I almost like being restricted.
I would suggest that's part of that's a choice for you to either have the idea that there's a perfect time for different things, or you can go, I'm going to do stuff when I want to do stuff and live that life instead. Because I think that's often the case. If you revert to action, like Jay says, Zach and Jay said it to me a year ago. It's been in my head since. If you revert to action, at least you know, maybe I'm not cut out for the boxing. Then you can come back and you can try out those different things. I think perfect timing is dangerous, actually.
Yeah, that's the thing that terrifies me the most. Because there are so many times where I've been doing things and I almost get this obsession where, like, I'm like, we have to do this now. If we don't do this now, it will never work. And that's almost like, that's not good. Because that puts out that it doesn't work that way. You kind of just got to let things live. That's the thing I've been trying to get more used to. Because I'm very much like, I have this idea, we have to do it now, or it's like, or somebody else will do it, or it's too late, or we won't be relevant enough to push this in X amount of time. I think that's the thing. It's like time and relevancy. I think scares me the most out of doing anything new. It's so much easier to just keep on doing the same things all the time, because you're like, well, this works, and then I'll just carry on, and that's the hardest thing, is like making jumps and trying to move on.
But I bet you get so much more out of the jumps.
Yes, because when it does happen, it does work. It's like a great thing. Like when I moved to London, I knew it was like a huge decision. I had like no money to do it. You know, I knew I was moving in with 2 good friends. The one who were a lot more further ahead than me in their careers, and it was one of those things where I've very much still been doing YouTube. Is very much just like kind of taking the mick a lot. So when I moved up to London, it's very much one of those things where, with the struggling to pay rent, it was like I knew I just saved up enough money just to pay for like 2 months of rent. So it's very much like a big thing to make it work. But even then, when I moved to London, I was so anti getting help from George and Will. Like, and even so, to the point where it's almost like, that's one of the things that I still struggle with now. It's like, I'm always on their channel. It's just because I always say yes to anything. But I cannot ask anybody to come on mine. I do not know why it is. I struggle so much with it because I suppose coming from the community that is so critical of people. It's always one of those things where I've never ever wanted to be seen as like somebody who was using other people, to the point when I moved in, they'd be like, look, if you want to pay rent, we'll do videos for you. And I'll be like, no, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll try and figure out myself.
I think, do you know what I think? Because I watched a video of you, and it was Back to Nothing.
Which is
raw, man. Yeah. But I noticed that you're saying, you're going like, look, there's no microphone on this. You're almost trying to you're so aware. You're trying to make it clear that this is real. This is really how you feel.
Yeah, it's like.
But you're saying like, I'm not doing this, and in the description, I think it said there's no ads on this. Just to be clear, you're almost like,
because I'm like terrified.
But I think that can happen a lot of time. You can read in between lines that don't exist. Whereas if you just said to Will or George, you went, "You do you mind coming home and doing this?" It's not like
that anymore at all. Like, but it was definitely for the first few months that I moved in, I was like constantly terrified of the idea that, you know, because the thing is, I know that other people only see numbers. So for me, it's almost like, because I am so hyper aware of YouTube and the world that I'm in, it's almost like, as much as for me, it could not matter. Like, for example, I mean, Kieran is on the podcast. He got like 20,000 subscribers. I think he's brilliant. James, when I met Marriott, he had like 1K subs. Fraser, all those guys. Like, it also doesn't out for me. Like, my biggest issue, more than just like being seen as somebody who, you know, taking advantage of the situation he's in, is just that I hate letting people down so much. Which is why, like, when I made that Back to Nothing video, and I am so hyper aware. It's not because I'm like, it's because of the fact that I look at that and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression, like, at all. And that's one of the things where I did a video actually like a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking, I don't know if this is good enough. I don't want to post a video that isn't like to will and equality, so I just scrapped it. And that's kind of like the issue that I have more than anything with stuff like YouTube and stuff like that. It's like when I make stuff for other people, I feel like I'm like, I am also now contributing to your brand, but in reality it is not that deep. It's not that deep. I think that is my biggest problem, is I'm such a deep thinker on YouTube and overthinker, and constantly trying to like figure out what the next thing is, to the point where I'll say things to people like Will and George. I'll be like, it could be such a small thing that's like changed everything this week, just because I'm constantly looking almost for like that excuse to an extent, and Will will be like, there's like, it could be the case, but he's like, that's also mental that you even thought of that. Like, you need to calm down, because you're just going to drive yourself into like an early grave thinking like crazy stuff like that.
Well, and it's, what good is it doing?
Nothing.
That's it.
Because even if it is true, most of the time, like with YouTube stuff, I'll be like, maybe it's the saturation thumbnail. It's different to the other ones.
Wow.
And then, because it could be, that's the issue. It could be that. But it's like, to the extent where, like, George the other day was like, what do you think about my recent thumbnails? This one didn't do very well. And he's like, why do you think that is? And I was like, I was really thinking. But that's because I do see those things. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's part of the, again, that's the strengths and the weaknesses,
it's
isn't it?
It's the part that makes me so tuned in and allows me to be able to adapt and do stuff like that, but also the part that drives me mental and probably also holds you back in so many situations.
So last 3 questions. First one is, it's more, I love it. I love your indifference to being bisexual.
I just could not care.
I just love it. I think, because there's so much discussion about all of that, and it's so dangerous to talk about.
No, yeah, I know, that is also one of the main reasons.
I love how indifferent you are to. I love it, just like, yeah.
What's one of the main reasons why I don't talk about it as well? It's because also I'm like, I don't know if even as somebody who is bisexual, so those things where I even talk about, I'm like, am I going to get it wrong?
Yeah.
Like, because you can worryingly just get it wrong.
Being bisexual, you get that wrong.
You can talk about sexuality and stuff like that. It's such sensitive topics. So I'm like, I try and avoid it as much as possible.
I almost that was more. I wanted just to say it because I think there's.
I'm fine with talking about it, but it's in like It's one of those things where I'm never like consciously thinking about it. Mainly also because of the fact that it is one of those things where it's like, as somebody who overthinks it, or I'm like, I just don't. It's mainly also going back to like the whole thing when people are like, Alex's video is so serious, I prefer the serious ones. I also don't like it when people are like, oh man, your video's got so much better when I realised you were gay. And it's like, what? What does that mean? So I was like, only funny because I belong to like a certain group of people I do in my spare time, which hopefully you never see. So it's like, that's my career goes horribly down the drain. I really need to career change.
But I just think I think that's really. I really enjoy. I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I just really enjoyed your like lack of being bothered about it, because I think as much as obviously there's been so much that's people have had to go through, and I understand that and appreciate that. I actually think the space that you're living in that sense is really healthy.
I'm very lucky to the point where I don't have to really actually. It's not like a big thing, whereas there are other people who get beaten, killed, and put in like terrible places for it in certain countries. So, and that was some of the things like. So that's one of the reasons why I also think it's important to be indifferent to it, because obviously you can go around being and I do talk about it occasionally because it is important to speak about that type of stuff because there aren't many people really around who do. But also it's one of those things where. I think if you want to normalise something like that, you've got to act like it's normal.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think as a straight guy, often a lot of the sort of the news that revolves around that is often stuff that is upsetting and sad and unfair and all those things. But actually, the exciting thing is that it might not be a big deal at some point. And I think you're an example.
Yeah,
of
that's
that,
that's my thing. Like, it's intentional. Like, it's not like just indifferent. It's one of those things where I was like, I think it's important to be like I'll make jokes about it in videos and stuff because I think a lot of comedy obviously comes from yourself and your experiences and stuff, but also in terms of just like being a person, especially as the fact that it's one of the things that I only realised really over the last 4 or 5 months is that to an extent after meeting parents of kids at meet and greets, and I went out to a concert the other day and met a parent as well. So I role model, worryingly, a role model to people. So it's also one of those things where I'm like, I know there are so many people watching me. I've got such a huge LGBT audience that I don't want those people to feel like, you have to go around and shout about it and all of that, or that I'm ignoring it. It's like there's this perfectly fine middle ground where you can just be that, and it doesn't have to be really anything else to that.
Yeah.
Which is why even like when I release like the rainbow merchandise, it's like a big LGBT people love that. But I'm never going to stand and be like, oh, it's gay people clothing, because that shouldn't make it any more interesting or special or cool. It's just clothes.
Yeah.
And that's just how I see it personally.
No, I loved it. I love hearing that. I loved it. Like there was this sort of big question that's like, oh, okay, what's he going to say? And he's like, I just not really. No, I'm cool. Like,
people will ask, it's a comment like, and because I am almost saying different to it, it's funny because it's to the point where people actually can't tell. Like they'll read something somewhere, and then they'll be like, oh, I read that you are, but you don't act like it.
I don't really know what acting like it is.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing for people to say, and it's probably the most asked thing I get apart from change your hair. So.
I thought it was great. And the thing, I think the thing that's interesting between that and your relaxed look at it, and then YouTube and being defined by being a YouTuber, I wonder if there's some thought processes there that you should actually chuck onto YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. I think my content has been a lot better since coming back from the 2-month break, because now I do not deep it at all. Like before.
Because it's a choice, isn't it?
I check my social blade every 5 minutes, like not even a joke, to the point where I have my phone in my hand and I scroll to somebody, I'll be able to get on. Don't even realise you're doing it. So many of my friends have that. I remember Marriott deleted all social media off his phone. We had like 250k subs, and I was saying, oh, that just hinders your job, because that's how I've managed to normalise that behaviour. I was like, if I constantly know, it was that thing where it's like, if like the subs dropped for I was doing 50 an hour, it's only 20, I'd be like, what can I tweet? What can I Instagram? What can I do? And that is mental, because sometimes people just don't click a button.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just don't find your channel, and it isn't all. And to be fair, what the terrifying is, I definitely could work at an output that would probably gain me like 3-4 million more subscribers if I wanted to work like a robot sociopath, which is what the Americans do. The reason why Logan and Jake did so well in such a short period of time is because they were working with a team like 20 people, just being like, what do we post that is designed to get the most from this, from that? Whereas I try not to work like that, because I also think, ironically in a way, people see through that and they actually don't click on it anymore. And that's the problem, because I am constantly in two minds with all of that stuff where it comes to caring that much. Because I know there are certain people who do not do proper thumbnails, they do not do proper titles, they don't do any algorithm work, they would not even be able to tell you how it works. And they get 3 million views every day because of that. Because people go, I love how... Cody Co's brilliant example.
Yeah.
He's amazing, brilliant, very funny. And that is obviously a huge contributor that he is like funnier than 95% of people. But he is not a YouTuber in the sense of the word that you'd apply to a Logan or a Jake Paul. Nowhere near it in that business sense. And that's why people love him. So you almost get dragged down this pathway where it's like being too analytical almost turns people off. Because it's one of the things I started doing recently. I used to have titles where I designed them to have keywords in them.
Right.
Now, I went over the other day, it was just called Jake Paul's a Loser. And it was one of my best performing videos, because I think people go, oh, it's so obviously dumb and stupid.
Right, yeah.
But people go, yeah, let's watch that. Because when it's, Jake Paul did this and you wouldn't believe it. I don't want to click on that. I'm like, oh, no, not you.
I guess that's trends though, isn't it? The trends that sort of come and go with all of those different things. But you can set the tone if you want to.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's tough to not get dragged away with it. Final two. One I ask everyone, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, man. Feeling like I am missing out on something right now that... Basically, like, if I don't act on something now, that I'll, in like 2 weeks' time, I never get a chance to do it ever again. I think it's always the biggest problem. It's always feeling like I could be doing more.
And by that, you're going back to YouTube there.
Yeah.
Videos, yeah.
Just in anything. So it doesn't have to be YouTube. Just in terms of my career
Or
my life.
Yeah.
Not even career. Remove the word career from it. Because I don't really look at YouTube as career. I look at it as just part of my life.
Yeah.
I don't even like the idea of looking at it as like a job, and I only really call it a job if I'm trying to, because it is a job, but more so to make people understand that it is work. But for me, I look at it as like, is there something I should be that I could be doing now that I haven't done? Like for example, today I was meant to make a video, but I went, James be now, I'll just sleep in, and then tonight, if suddenly the views went down, I'd be thinking, should have made that video
Fucking
today.
James Blank.
Yeah, bloody James.
Yeah, still my views.
That's what keeps me up at night.
Okay.
That.
And last one, I just thought it'd be interesting as someone who knows YouTube so well. What do you see in 2020? Is there a YouTuber that you want to call right now who's going to be huge?
Oh, Kieran. I think Kieran will be huge. That's one of the reasons why I got him on. He edits my videos, but I got him to edit one of my 90 Day Fiancé videos, which is like my most beloved series. So one of the only original things on my channel. And people were commenting on it being like, this is the best video you ever edited, and I was like, well, it definitely wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as he can properly put like that energy into his stuff, it's just, he reminds me of when I found James actually. When I found James at 1k subs, I remember I probably was a mistake to be fair. I called him up and I was like, you're gonna be huge. I always said to James, I was like, you'll pass me one day, by massively. And I think Kieran is very much on. He's currently in the position where if he just uploaded a few of the right videos, he'd be there in probably 6 months.
Yeah, and he's someone who. So I did a video with him. I think we hit 10k. Same reason. Saw him. Think he's funny. His editing is great, but I think more importantly, he's funny. And so we did great stories, which we're going to do in a sec. And we did one for his channel as well. And yeah, he's just a bloody good bloke. But I think he's not a secret in our behind the scenes.
Everybody knows Kieran.
Everyone knows about him. Everyone loves him. But
that's
he is a huge secret.
Because that was with James. Everybody knew who James was.
Right.
And everybody was like, he's great. And as soon as you've got that buzz around you, it's almost like, it's literally just work ethic. Because I've had a bunch of friends, like 5 or 6 friends who all had like 3-4k subs, and everybody was buzzing about them. And then they almost took that buzz as everybody, all these million sub YouTubers already think I'm hilarious and are telling me to make channels. What's the point in doing it? I might as well just kind of live off this. Because it's almost like that. It's like when they talk about giving footballers contracts when they're too young.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I might as well just, I'll be Man United player in 5 years. And then you never hear of them ever again. Because they live off of it.
Yeah.
I don't think Kieran's like that, although he's proven that he's got a ridiculous work ethic, so it's fine.
We sat down and chat about it, and he's a good lad. There you go. There's someone to go check out.
Regret this horribly.
Yeah, I know. Actually, if he turns his back on you now, stabs you in the back.
Not another podcast.
Imagine, yeah, exactly. But then you could come back and do a heated debate.
Oh yes, yeah.
Look at the views there.
The 7th one.
Yeah, exactly. Al, thank you, mate.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Really good to chat to you. If you enjoyed that, and you haven't seen Alex's content, then obviously head over there, but you probably have already. Check out the podcast as well, which I think is wicked for you. I think it's really, really good.
It's great fun.
Kieran's on that one as well, which I'm sure you're all going to search his name in a second as well. If you have a second, you could subscribe to me. That's up to you.
And you should.
That's up to you. But importantly, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And when I say this, I'm talking to, if you're a bit older, don't be a dick and be patronising. What did you actually get out of this conversation? And if you're younger, it'd be interesting to know what you think as well, because I think this is the whole point of this series, is that it's about, we're all going through different processes all the time. Sounds cliche, but it feels really true. And yeah, even for me to understand you a little bit better means that I'm probably going to understand other people a bit better, which I think is a decent thing. So yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. Other ones coming very soon. So as I say, hit subscribe. I'll see you soon.